Millionaire poses as a taxi driver to pick up. His daughter, Edward Blake, was used to controlling everything. Markets, skyscrapers, entire empires. But there was one thing he couldn't seem to manage: time with his own daughter. So one day, he came up with an idea that sounded almost childish. What if he disguised himself as a cab driver and picked her up from school? He thought it would be fun, maybe even touching, but what actually happened shattered him. Because inside that cab, his daughter's innocent words would pierce deeper than any business defeat he'd ever known. She admitted something no father ever wants to hear. Sometimes she told her friends she had another dad, a dad who actually showed up. Because her real father, he was always too busy. In that instant, Edward's disguise didn't matter anymore. Beneath the cap and jacket wasn't a clever businessman. It was a broken father who realized his empire meant nothing if the one person who needed him most felt abandoned. Before we continue, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us bring you more powerful stories like this one. Now, let's dive in. Edward's life was timed to the second. Meetings stacked higher than the towers he owned, assistants circling him like satellites, calls pinging at all hours. He commanded the skyline, but at home there was only distance. His daughter Sophia moved around him quietly like a little planet orbiting too far from its sun. Polite, smart, but never close. He noticed the small things, the way she tightened her backpack strap when he walked into the room. How her eyes slid to the floor whenever he promised, "Next time, I'll be there." Those promises built up like bricks too, but they built walls, not bridges. Lately, Edward found himself waking before dawn, sitting at the kitchen island while the house was still dark and cold. Coffee warming his hands, the fridge humming, silence pressing. His phone screen glowed with photos of Sophia, soccer games, birthdays, school plays, photos where he was never in the frame. He'd sent gifts, sent drivers, sent excuses. Somewhere along the way, he had outsourced being a father like it was just another task. The idea to change didn't crash down like thunder. It slipped in quietly, almost embarrassing in its simplicity. Just show up. No private jets, no chauffeurs, just him. A dad. He rummaged through the back of his closet, pulled out an old jacket that still smelled faintly of dust and forgotten winters. He tried on a faded cap, lowering the brim until his reflection looked like someone ordinary. He studied his hands that signed billion-dollar deals, trying to soften them into the patient rhythm of a man who waits for fares. A friend owed him a favor, so Edward borrowed a beat-up yellow cab. The vinyl seat clung to his palms, and a cheap, pine-scented air freshener swung from the mirror with every breath of the vent. He clicked the meter on and off, steadying himself. By the school gates, the world spilled out in backpacks and chatter. Mothers clustered on the sidewalk, whispering. "That Blake family, always a driver," one muttered. Another added, "Never the dad." Edward gripped the wheel tighter, eyes fixed forward, as if their words weren't knives. Through the windshield, he spotted Sophia, small shoulders, careful steps, her ponytail a little uneven because she'd tied it herself. Engines idled. Autumn light glinted off glass and chrome. Edward's mind scrambled for the perfect first line. He rehearsed one, threw it away, then another. None felt right. Maybe today wasn't about speeches. Maybe today was about listening. A teacher bent down to Sophia, whispered something that made her nod without smiling. Two boys sprinted past, laughing, and a father called out to his son, "Practice at 6, don't be late." The laughter of other families floated in the air, spilling across the sidewalk, brushing against the taxi's bumper like easy music Edward couldn't join. Two teens strolled past, tossing words loud enough for anyone to hear. "Must be nice, all that money," one said. The other snorted. "Yeah, but you can't spend time like cash." Edward froze. The words stung because they were true. He rolled his window down just a crack. Warm air carried the smell of pencil shavings, asphalt and autumn leaves. His heart slowed, steadying itself for the moment he had rehearsed but could never fully prepare for. He angled the rearview mirror, not toward himself, but toward the back seat. Because today wasn't about Edward Blake, the tycoon. Today was about Sophia. When she finally stepped off the curb, he gave the horn a single, soft tap, just enough to be noticed. She paused, scanning the street. No sleek black sedan, no familiar driver. Just a beat-up yellow taxi and a stranger behind the wheel, cap pulled low. Sophia's eyes lingered on the school, then back on the cab. She adjusted the strap of her backpack, the leather creaking under the weight. Edward swallowed hard, softened his posture and unlocked the door. No performance, he reminded himself. Just presence, just her. The door clicked open, louder than it should have been. She slid inside, settling the backpack on her knees. The vinyl squeaked as if it too was nervous. "Where to?" Edward asked, his voice roughened, softened, carefully practiced. She rattled off the address automatically, like muscle memory. Then silence, heavy silence, the kind that makes the hum of the engine sound like thunder. He pulled from the curb, gravel crunching under the tires. Outside, parents lingered with their children, waving, reminding them about homework, promising dinner together. Sophia watched with a look Edward had never seen before, half longing, half distance. Two boys pedaled by on bikes, shouting, "See you at the park!" A girl chased after them, shoelaces slapping the ground. Edward's hands tightened on the wheel as he caught Sophia's gaze following them. She looked down quickly, tugging at her own laces though they were tied tight. "You like parks?" Edward asked casually, eyes fixed on the changing light. "Sometimes," she murmured, not looking up. "But I don't go much." The cab rolled forward, past a grocery store where workers unloaded crates. The sharp scent of oranges mingled. With exhaust, Edward cracked his window, filling his lungs with anything that might loosen the knot in his chest. He wanted to speak, to offer something light, but he let the silence breathe. Maybe in that quiet, she'd let something slip. At the next stop, two women crossed in front of the cab, chatting carelessly. Her dad's never around, always traveling. One whispered, her eyes flicking briefly toward Sophia. "Money can't hug you good night," the other replied. Their laughter was soft, but it cut deep. Sophia's shoulders shifted. She stared down at the floor mat, her voice locked away. Edward's throat tightened. He cleared it, forcing words out. "Long day at school?" She shrugged. "Just regular. Another beat, another chance. You've got friends waiting for you?" This time she looked up. For a fleeting second, her reflection locked with his in the mirror. Her eyes were heavy, far too old for 10 years. "Not really," she said simply. "Everyone's busy with their families. I just go home." Her words weren't bitter. They were flat, practiced. The kind you say to yourself so many times they start to sound normal. Edward's knuckles whitened around the steering wheel. Edward forced a steady breath through his nose, though it came out shaky. Streetlights buzzed awake one by one, their glow cutting through the dusk as shadows thickened around them. The taxi jolted over a pothole, and Sophia instinctively hugged. Her backpack tighter, Edward's eyes caught the detail. A small stuffed rabbit poking out of the zipper, its ear frayed from years of love. She smoothed it gently with her thumb, like she was comforting the toy instead of herself. He dared one. More question, his voice lowered to something almost fragile. "If you could change one thing, just one, what would it be?" Sophia didn't answer right away. She stared out the window, watching corner shops and neon signs blur together. The pause stretched so long, Edward feared she wouldn't reply, at all. Then, barely above a whisper, she said, "I'd change how much I see my dad." The words cut straight through him, like glass, shattering inside his chest. No anger, no hesitation, just truth, raw and pure. Edward's eyes stung, but He kept the cab steady. Suddenly, every meeting, every next time, every empty seat at a recital pressed against him like lead. Headlights washed over fences and brick walls, but the world had grown unbearably small. The air inside the cab was thick, fragile, ready to break. The street quieted as they rolled beneath arching trees, their branches swaying, whispering in the night breeze. Sophia rested her forehead against the cool glass, tracing invisible shapes on the window. Edward's pulse thudded in his ears. He longed to speak, to say something, but he remembered he was here to listen. After a long silence, Sophia sighed. "You know what's funny?" Her voice was so soft he almost missed it. Edward's throat tightened. "What's that?" She fidgeted with the edge of her sleeve, hesitating before the words slipped out. "People think it's amazing having a dad who's rich. They say, I must get whatever I want, but they don't understand. I'd trade all of it, every gift, for him just being home." The blow landed hard, dull, and crushing. Edward's grip tightened around the wheel until his knuckles paled. His jaw locked, then loosened as he let the car roll slow through the street. But Sophia wasn't done. Her voice quivered like a dam cracking. "Sometimes when other kids talk about their dads, about going to the park or watching movies, I just pretend." She gave a small, shaky laugh. "I make up stories. I tell them, oh yeah, my dad takes me fishing or we play games after dinner. They believe me, but it's all fake." The confession tore into him worse than any boardroom defeat. Edward's chest burned heavy as stone. He blinked rapidly, but the mirror betrayed him. His eyes shone with tears. Sophia hugged her backpack closer, whispering the words that broke him completely. "One time, I even told them I had two dads, one real, one imaginary. The imaginary one always shows up." Edward's vision blurred. The wheel wavered in his trembling hands. He eased the cab to the curb, brakes sighing as the car idled. He couldn't drive another block, not with her words crushing every piece of him. Sophia's eyes flickered with worry, like maybe she'd gone too far. She ducked her head, brushing her rabbit's ear again. "Sorry, I talked too much." "No," Edward whispered. The disguise cracked. His voice wavered. He twisted in his seat, the cap slipping back, his face finally revealed. Tears carved down his cheeks. Sophia's eyes widened. Recognition struck. "Dad!" Edward nodded, chest heaving, his voice breaking. "I just wanted to know what you really felt, without me standing there in a suit pretending I've got it all figured out." For a moment the cab was still, silent. Then Sophia slid forward, small hands clutching his trembling one. Sophia's small fingers wrapped around his, warm, certain, unshakable. The cab smelled of worn leather and cheap pine freshener, but now it carried something else too, something fragile and rare, honesty. Edward bowed his head, tears dripping onto his sleeve. In all his years of building empires, closing billion-dollar deals, he had never felt so completely undone. And yet, in this breaking came the truth he had needed all along. He sat frozen, shoulders trembling, while Sophia's little hands refused to let go. The quiet hum of the engine filled the silence, a steady backdrop to the storm, unraveling inside his chest. For so long, Edward had believed power meant control, control over companies, money, time itself. But here, in a dented cab on a quiet street, he finally understood. Time had always been slipping away, faster than any fortune could ever catch. Sophia didn't cry. She just watched him, wide-eyed, as if she couldn't tell whether to feel hurt or relieved. Her voice broke the silence, gentle, almost apologetic. I didn't mean to make you sad." Edward lifted his tear-streaked face, raw in a way he hadn't allowed in decades. His voice cracked as he whispered, "No, sweetheart. You didn't make me sad. You made me see." This silence was different now, not empty but full. full of truth, full of love that had been waiting too long to be spoken. Edward squeezed her hand tight, then reached back fully, pulling her into the front seat beside him. She climbed awkwardly over the gear shift, laughing a little when her backpack snagged. The sound, small, pure, real, nearly broke him all over. Again, he wrapped her into his arms, pressing her close. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about flights to catch, deals to close, or towers of glass and steel. He thought only of the warmth of his daughter's cheek against his shirt, the faint smell of crayons in her hair, and the rhythm of her heartbeat syncing with his. Outside, two passers-by slowed, whispering as they noticed the sight of a powerful man in tears, clinging to a child inside a taxi. "Isn't that Blake?" one murmured. "Never thought I'd see him like this." The others shook their head. Maybe money really isn't everything. Their voices faded with their footsteps, but the truth lingered in Edward's chest. He pulled back just enough to meet Sophia's eyes. "No more empty promises. From now on, I'm showing up. Every game, every recital, every bedtime story, I'll be there. You are my everything, Sophia. And I'm so sorry it took me this long to say it." She studied him quietly, as if testing whether she could believe him this time. Then, slowly, her lips curved into a smile, small at first, then wide enough to brighten the entire cab. "That's all I ever wanted, Dad. Just you." Edward kissed her forehead, sealing a vow that needed no contracts, no signatures. The man who once thought wealth was measured in skyscrapers and steel finally understood. His greatest fortune had been waiting in the back seat all along. As he restarted the cab and merged back into the stream of traffic, his grip on the wheel felt different, lighter, steadier. Not the grip of a businessman chasing his next victory, not the grip of a chauffeur in disguise, but the grip of a father, fully present in the role that mattered most. And for the first time in years, Edward Blake drove home, not to a house, not to an empire, but to his daughter. Edward learned the hard way that no fortune can ever replace the gift of time. What about you? Do you believe love is richer than money? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if stories like this moved, you make sure to subscribe so you never miss the next one.